All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the drive-through, a special Chapter 2 quiz review edition. As always, sponsored by the deli. Hungry? Stop by the deli. Make yourself some miniature turkey sandwiches on King's Hawaiian mini rolls with peppered turkey and provolone cheese and sweet hot mustard. 3 of them should suffice, with some chips. All right, so we're reviewing for our quiz, which is tomorrow. Okay, these are the most important words that appear from this chapter, but remember that geometry is cumulative, so everything we learned from last chapter is also on this quiz. So, an angle bisector is a segment ray or line that cuts an angle into 2 congruent angles. Okay? Perpendicular lines. 2 lines are said to be perpendicular if they form a right angle. Be careful. Perpendicular lines say nothing about 90 degrees. Okay? Complementary angles. There's 2 definitions. You have to understand that or you're going to get one of the true-false questions wrong. So, complementary angles. 2 angles are complementary if they add to be 90 degrees. Or you could say that 2 angles are complementary if they form a right angle. Okay? Supplementary angles. 2 angles are supplementary if they add to be 180 degrees. Or you can say 2 angles are supplementary if they form a straight angle. Okay? And finally, the congruent complements theorem says if 2 angles are complementary to the same angle, then those 2 angles are congruent to each other. It also says that if 2 angles are complementary to congruent angles, then those 2 original angles must be congruent to each other. Okay, all of that is review. It should be in your notes. It absolutely is in your book, and it is also in the previous videos that you can see on the Blackboard site. But let's think about the answer to this true or false question. True or false? If 2 angles are complementary, then they form right angles. That is false because it's not always true. You could provide a counterexample where this angle was 40 degrees and that angle was 50 degrees, and those 2 angles are indeed complementary to each other, but they do not form a right angle. This is the type of logical deductive thinking that we're trying to teach in you guys. So don't speed through the true or false, okay? The quiz will be 6 true and false questions worth 2 points each, 9 other questions worth 2 points each, and then 1 proof that is worth 10 points. So the entire quiz is worth 40 points, which means it's more weighted than your first quiz, so this is a good chance for you to improve your grade and status in this class. So let's look at maybe what could be a typical proof on this quiz. Number 10 from 2.4. Okay? We've got everything listed for you. So I know that AO is perpendicular to OC, and that BO is perpendicular to OD, and that's given. Okay, well, I got to be careful because the definition of complementary says if 2 angles form a right angle. Do I have anything written down in my proof about a right angle yet? I do not. See, this is why you've got to accurately know the definitions. So then what I need to say is that angle AOC and angle BOD are what? Are right angles. And my reason? Excellent. Definition of perpendicular. Okay? Well, Now I can say that angle 1 is complementary to angle 2, correct? But in the same step, because it's going to be the same reason, I can say that angle 3 is complementary to angle 2. Now, I wrote it in this order for a reason. I think that's a really good way to understand what the congruent complements theorem tells us. But first, before I go any further, what's my reason? How do I know that those are complementary? That would be the definition of complementary. What's the definition of complementary? If two angles form a right angle, then they are complementary. Okay, good. I have right angle included in my proof. So that allows me to say the definition of complementary. So now look, angle 1 is complementary to angle 2, but angle 3 is complementary to angle 2. So how must angle 1 be related to angle 3? They must be congruent. Very good, Magna. Angle 1 must be congruent to angle 3. And what is my reasoning for my answer? It's the congruent complements theorem. But since it's early, I'm going to write that out so you guys understand what it means. If two angles are complementary to the same angle, then the two angles, are congruent to each other. Well, boom!